everybody, and welcome to Carving It Up Live right here on YouTube as well as on Instagram and on Twitter. As always, I'm Bryson Carver. Very excited to be with you on this Wednesday. We got all kinds of stuff to talk about. So the finals are 3-2 OKC. Thunder got a chance to win a title tomorrow for the first time in the history of the Thunder franchise. I guess the franchise the Supersonics won back in 1979. But technically, as the OKC Thunder, their first championship, they could win it tomorrow. Pacers trying to stave elimination. More on the Tyrese Haliburton injury in about 8 to 10 minutes and what that could look like. Why I think he should play Game 6. Again, no doctor. I'm going to say that in the front end. But I think Haliburton needs to give it a go in Game 6 for Indiana. Reaction to why Jalen Williams, to me, is the key in whether Oklahoma City can sustain this dominant season they're having moving forward. Talk about that. Also talk about LeBron James. LeBron, Steve Nash, Mind the Game Pod. LeBron had some evidently controversial comments on the ring culture thing, and I got something to say about it on this week's edition of Carving Up the Context. Stay tuned for that in 30. After that, Caitlin Clark. We got another skirmish. So Caitlin and the Connecticut Sun and Caitlin's Indiana Fever get into a skirmish, if you will, and there's ejections and suspensions, and not actually any suspensions, but technical fouls. Touch on that. Why I think there's a lot of overreaction. To me, there's one villain, and it's not the WNBA front office. Get into that. And at the end of today's show, my predictions for Game 5 of the 2025, Game 6, rather, of the 2025 NBA Finals. Very excited to touch on that. But first, OKC up 3-2. They do something for the Pacers, or to the Pacers, that hasn't happened to Indiana since between March 6th and March 10th, is that the Pacers lost more than one game in a row. So OKC up 3-2. Shea was fantastic with 31 points, but the story, without question, was Jalen Williams. So the thing about Jalen Williams, who goes for 40, by the way, in this game 5 for OKC to go up 3-2, winning game 120 to 109. The thing about Jalen Williams, because you're seeing a little bit over the last few days, and I talked about this after the Western Conference Finals, after they beat Minnesota. I said, not to an exact point, but there are a few sort of Chicago Bulls comparisons that I will entertain, as it pertains to obviously their success, but Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, awesome two-guard MVP. He's Michael Jordan in this story for this Oklahoma City team. Jalen Williams certainly does not bring the length to the table that Scottie Pippen brought to the Bulls, but in this case can score more than Scottie. He plays great down the defensive end, and then it's a lot of size, it's a lot of Chet Holmgrens and Isaiah Hartenstein. You look at some of those teams with Winnington and Tony Kukoc, and then good shooters, Isaiah Joe, Steve Kerr. There are comps here. To me, Jalen Williams, because I picked OKC in 6. You'll see my prediction at the end of the show. They have a chance to wrap it up tomorrow night. I think if Oklahoma City is going to continue this, because folks are like, man, Thunder could be a dynasty. It is really hard. And I hate this, but based on the new CBA, it is very hard to build a dynasty in today's NBA. I mean, look at the Boston Celtics. You can talk about, well, Jason Tatum blew his Achilles. Yeah, he blew his Achilles in a game that the Celtics were going to lose to go down 3-1 to the Knicks. They were not going to win that series. A year ago, Denver clipped in 7 by the T-Wolves. My Warriors were knocked out in 6 year before. It's hard to build a dynasty. And people said, well, OKC's got a lot of draft picks. And with the new CBA, it's harder to keep your draft picks if they develop than ever. So my thing is, it could be cyclical for OKC. SGA is going to be the superstar rather. He's going to be the face of this. You imagine Chet as he begins to develop. Listen, he's struggling to finish at the rim this series. Chet's in his second year playing in the league. He's going to get better and has already been excellent in this league as a shot blocker and a good offensive player on the perimeter and inside at times. But to me, Jalen Williams is the key on whether this team can be a dynasty. It's not the draft picks. Sam Presti's the best GM in basketball. We know that. It's not the draft picks. It's not they've got depth. So do the Indiana Pacers. Right there, when the new CBA, you kind of have to have depth in order to go deep in the postseason. Whereas in the past, it certainly helped, but it wasn't a prerequisite to be an NBA Finals contender. Now it is. If Jalen Williams can develop, I'm hearing talk of superstar. I'm not quite willing to go there yet. He's in his third year in the league, but he was an all-star this year. And we can show you the numbers. He's gotten better by the game in the finals. He had a rough game 1, 17 points, only shot 31%. 19 points, 35%, not that much better. But then in game 3, made half his shots, scored 26 points, scored more points in game 4, 27 on slightly lesser efficiency. And then in game 5 was his big-time performance, 40 points on 56% shooting. Jalen Williams was fantastic. And I think as I watch this, obviously his ability to get to the rim, I feel like I feel like he got 10 of the 40 just in transition, just on bad Indiana turnovers, getting out there. We know he can shoot the three ball. He had a big shot. Remember against the Denver Nuggets? I believe it was Jalen Williams who had a big shot in Game 5 late against Denver to take the 3-2 series lead at home. Like, it's just these big games. You're building a resume to try and become the Scottie Pippen-esque role player for this OKC team. Not role player, but playing the Scottie Pippen role. And you just watch this Thunder team. And to me, the difference in this Game 5 was the two stars, one superstar, one star for OKC, scored a combined 71 points. The Indiana Pacers' top two guys, Haliburton and Siakam, scored 32, and 28 of those came from Pascal. He did his job. Obviously, Haliburton, who we'll touch on in a few minutes, really struggled, did not make a single shot. Is the first All-NBA player ever in history in a finals to not make a single shot since 1958. Got to go back to the Eisenhower administration for something like that. But I just watched this OKC team. I feel like we're starting to get not a regression to the mean per se, but I feel like this is starting to look about how a lot of prognosticators thought it would look. A lot of folks, I think the popular pick coming to the series was, Thunder in 5. Pacers will get one at home, Thunder in 5. I said Thunder in 6 because I thought the Pacers style play could give OKC problems, and it has. And even through stretches of Game 5, third quarter, obviously everybody's talking about TJ McConnell, who was fantastic off the bench, but it's the depth, it's the offensive, prowess. Like, I don't care how great your defense is, and OKC's defense in the half court is suffocating. You're going to get buckets if you're a great offensive team like Indiana. You move the basketball, all of it. But I feel like this is about what folks thought it would look. At least I felt it would look by the end of the series. I felt it would be 2-2, going back to OKC. Thunder would win the last two games of the series. They're a win away from tomorrow, from making that come true. I just, there's something about Jalen Williams. Like, the fact that I feel like we're sort of just sweeping under the rug. Like, this OKC team, like, those who have watched the NBA for a long time know, like, okay, they got Shea in the Paul George trade, and they had the 1 year with Chris Paul. They made the playoffs. Lou Dort got a shot blocked by James Harden. I know that's a weird statement. You'd think it'd be the other way around. But then after that, man, there were some bad years and tanking, and Shea would, sit. A couple of years, Shea would, sit for the last few weeks of the regular season so that he didn't get hurt. We're going to try and get as high of a pick as possible. That's how they got Chet in 2022. They had some lean years there. I feel like we think about that whole process, and then bam, they pop last year, and this year they could be a champion. I feel like we're just underrating the fact that Jalen Williams is in year 3. That Jalen Williams did come out of nowhere. That this was not necessarily supposed to be the guy next to Shea to be that number 2 co-star. It's supposed to be Chet. It still could be Chet. But if Chet develops the way that he's supposed to as the number 2 pick from 3 years ago, if Jalen Williams, who was not a crazy sought-after prospect in the draft OKC got him in, if he continues to develop and becomes the player, even greater than he is now, all of a sudden you're looking at the Thunder and saying, yeah, that's the key to them being a dynasty. Now, the problem is Shea's going to sign a super duper max, by the way, worth every penny. We know this. It's going to be hard in the long run. This is why I have reservations about calling them a dynasty, even if they do win tomorrow night or in a Game 7, because it is so hard to keep your other skill position players. Your other guys like a Jalen Williams, like a Chet Holmgren, because of the very, very restrictive CBA and the second apron, all of it. But if this team becomes a dynasty, it's not because they had a pick in 2029. Like, that's not what's going to develop this thing for OKC. It's going to be Shea's awesome, and the rest of the guys, they're going to develop into being what they need them to be. And so, kudos to this basketball team for just sticking to what they know, what got them there, and for Jalen Williams for taking advantage himself. They've been absolutely fantastic in every way, shape, and form. And also, I guess, on the Haliburton side of things, that's what really is the big story going into Game 6. Because obviously, for the entertainment aspect, we all want to see this series go to a Game 7. There's no question about that. Let's see, am I back? If you guys can hear me, let me know. I'm looking at my monitor right now. This is the second time in a couple shows that our show has gone out. I sincerely apologize to the audience. Let's see. Does that do it? Boom. Okay, we're back. So sorry about that, folks. Those that were watching the show and I went out again. This is the second straight show that this has happened. So there's some technical issues. We're trying to get those resolved. So I sincerely apologize. But transition now, though, to what I was saying, though, about Tyrese Haliburton. And I really hadn't said anything until the show broke out. So he re-aggravates a strained calf that had been bothering him earlier in the playoffs. And he does not score a single point in this basketball game. He goes 0 for 6. He had a brutal performance again. He's the first All-NBA player to have an 0 for performance in the finals since 1958. It's been a while, to say the very least. I am not a doctor. Feels like anytime we talk about health and whether a player should play or not, that's what we have to say, and it's fair. Like none of us are medical professionals, unless you are a medical professional watching this show. Unless there's something I don't know, and obviously nobody knows their body better than Tyrese or his body better than Tyrese, I think he needs to play in Game 6. My justification for that is this. I'm hearing some of the comparisons, and I understand it with, Kevin Durant, 2019, he strained his calf, and look what happened in the finals. He blew his Achilles, and it, stole a year and a half of basketball and a year of his prime. He didn't play at all the following season. I get that. But they are very different situations. First of all, when Kevin Durant went down, which this was Game 5, Western Conference semifinals against the Houston Rockets. KD hits a pull-up jumper. I think he hit over Amon Shumpert, runs back the other way, and then just looks back like, wait, who kicked me? What the heck happened here? And there's a noticeable limp, and he goes straight to the locker room, doesn't come back for the game. And initially, the way Achilles injury goes, you feel like he got kicked, right? This is what a lot of folks at Taylor Achilles say, bro, who kicked me? Kevin Durant's like, whoa, you can see him looking back. What the heck happened? Goes straight to the locker room, doesn't come back. It was thought initially, he might have popped his Achilles. This could be. That was not the initial thought on Haliburton when he went down. And he came back in the game a few minutes later. Now, he was only played 34 minutes, was I believe is his fewest in the finals thus far. So, that's obviously that factored into how much he played the other night. But if this is a situation where the doctors feel he can't re-aggravate it, but also if they felt like he could re-aggravate it in Game 5, no, this wasn't Indiana down 3-1. This was, we lose. It's bad, but we got a home game in Game 6 to get it back here for a Game 7. It's not the end of the world. Knowing that, despite the struggles, and that was what people got in Carlisle for, is TJ McConnell's got it going in the third quarter. We're cutting this down to a one-possession game, and why'd you put Haliburton in for the final stretch there? Knowing that Haliburton played. So that's kind of my mindset as to why I think he needs to play in this Game 6, is that he controls. I know folks have talked about, Indiana. I think I saw a stat where they were +2 or something with him off the floor. I get that. Plus minus at times can be a little bit of a misleading stat, kind of like QBR in the NFL, the ESPN QBR stat. It can be a little weird and not necessarily, or not QBR, but passer rating. It maybe sometimes doesn't have the proper context surrounding it. He controls the pace, particularly at home. I mean, you've seen it at home in this series. They win Game 3, and they could have easily won Game 4 if A, SGA doesn't go off, and B, if Indiana can get a good shot. And so, listen, it's more than on the board they win Game 6. I have a hard time seeing. Again, I get it. He doesn't score a lot of points. He doesn't have a, sexy brand of offensive basketball. I understand that. We can even show you. We've done this game by game in this finals, but we can show you the numbers right here as far as what he's done scoring-wise in each game of these playoffs right here. I mean, you see 17.5 a game against Milwaukee, 17.5 a game against Cleveland, 19 against the Knicks, and now it's down to 15 after the 4-point performance in Game 5. For the record, every single series he's had a game scoring 10 or less. 10 in Game 1 against Milwaukee, another 4-point game, by the way, in Game 3 against Cleveland, 8 in Game 5 against the Knicks, 4 in Game 5 against OKC. Now, again, different stakes. NBA Finals, 2 games to 2. Winner of Game 5 in a 2-2 series wins the champion, or wins the title 82% of the time or something like that. We get that stat, but I do feel like for Haliburton, you look at it and you say, clearly it compromised him. There were moments where it was it didn't have quite the same burst, but Rick Carlisle's smart. Rick Carlisle's been coaching the NBA for decades. He's a champion with the Dallas Mavericks in 2011, and he would not put his superstar player or star player, however you view Haliburton, in a position where he could forget this finals. He could be gone for all of next year. This could be like a Damian Lillard or Kyrie Irving type of situation, or Jason Tatum. And so, listen, I think Haliburton's going to play Game 6. He made comments today saying, Carlisle said we're preparing to play Game 6 without him. Haliburton says I'm going to do everything in my power to play Game 6. My guess is he probably gets cleared by the doctors. And if he's cleared by the doctors, What's Carlisle going to do? Not play his best player in a game 6 with the finals on the line to get back to OKC for a decisive game 7? It's a risk. It's always a risk playing with injury, particularly if it's in that calf Achilles area. There's no question about it. And listen, I will certainly be second guessing myself. I will openly admit that if, God forbid, knock on wood, something bad happens in game 6 and I'll be on Friday saying, oh, shouldn't have said that on Wednesday's show. I understand that. But there's an element of he finished the rest of the game. Didn't play well, but finished the rest of game 5. That injury happened in the first half, guys. Play the rest of game 5. And your season's on the line. Championship's on the line. There's no guarantee you'll get back to the finals if you're Indiana. I mean, you look at the Eastern Conference. We've had a different champion every single year. Only Boston since 2019 has gone twice because it's been Toronto. Boston, Miami. Toronto, Miami, Milwaukee, Boston, Miami, Boston, and now this year with the Indiana Pacers. There's no guarantee necessarily you'll get back, and we haven't seen a repeat champion. We haven't seen a lot of teams get back. We haven't seen anyone get back the year after they lose the finals in either the West or the East. So there you go. I think we're seeing a spot where Haliburton plays game 6. That's just my gut feeling. Could be wrong, but that's my gut feeling. Also, too, again, we're trying to address some of the technical issues that may have plagued us earlier. So I apologize for that. Sorry we went out right before I was about to talk about Haliburton. Hopefully that won't be an issue moving forward. I did also want to sort of touch on the Lakers sale, because this broke 90 minutes ago or so by Shams Charania, that the Buss family is entering an agreement to sell majority ownership of the Los Angeles Lakers to Mark Walter, who is the CEO and chairman of diversified holding company TWG Global. Sources tell ESPN, Jeannie Buss will continue to serve in her role as governor after the sale. So she'll still technically be the owner. The Buss family isn't selling all of this to Mark Walter. But this says that from Shams, Walter has been a minority stakeholder in the Lakers since 2021 and has interest in multiple professional sports organizations, including the LA Dodgers, WNBA's Los Angeles Sparks, the Billie Jean Cup, Cadillac Formula One team, and the Professional Women's Hockey League. So here's my take on this, because initially we obviously weren't planning to talk about it in the show until this news broke an hour before the show. Obviously, the Lakers, listen, we know they're the most popular basketball brand. The Warriors actually are the more valuable sports brand, as we say here today. That's the power of Steph Curry. But we know the Lakers, historically speaking, are certainly more, notable and popular than the Warriors franchise. And I think only Boston has a legit case, and most of Boston's championships happened before the modern NBA era. But the big knock on the Lakers since the passing of Dr. Jerry Buss, I think that was 2013, if I remember correctly, is that they've run their business. It's very similar to the Dallas Cowboys. I've compared Dallas and the Lakers for years, where it's longtime owner, family business. They kind of run it like a small business per se, as opposed to maybe the two, along with the Yankees, most recognizable sports team brands, sports franchise brands in the country, if not the world. I mean, you could obviously argue some soccer teams in there, some soccer clubs, but they've run their business as if they're not that. They run their business as if they're the Milwaukee Bucks, for crying out loud at times, with the Rambis family. And I know people like Rob Pelinka now. I know that's a thing. Again, nothing against Rob personally, but I'm not going to give the man a ton of credit for answering the phone when Nico Harrison, offered him Luka Doncic. I think it would have taken a moron not to say yes. Regardless, it's been the GM is Kobe's agent. And president basketball operator like Magic Johnson, who they shouldn't have fired or kicked out essentially, but Magic Johnson was a part of this. And it's the Buss family. And despite Jim Buss, who was one of the worst team sports owners I've ever seen in my life. Like, Jeannie's not been great. She wasn't nearly as bad as her brother. The Rambis family, like, it's just Laker. The Cowboys. It's Jerry and Steven, and who do they hire to be their new head coach? The former offensive coordinator for the Cowboys, Brian Schottenheimer. Like, it's Cowboy. I feel like this sale, and I know Jeannie's going to continue to be the owner of this team. I feel like the sale with Mark Walter being really the true owner in this sense, the fact that he owns the Los Angeles Dodgers is, and I hate to say this to Warriors fans, great news for the Lakers. It's great news for Lakers fans, because you see that and say, listen, there's no salary cap in baseball. There's a hard cap in the NBA. But you look at that and say, oh, he's not afraid to spend money on. I'll pay Shohei Ohtani, $700 million. Like that's not a question. I will pay Shohei whatever he wants. I'll pay Mookie I'll pay Freddie Freeman. I'll pay anybody. The great pitcher from Japan, like I'll pay anybody that I can put my team in position to win a World Series title. You can't do that in the NBA or in the NFL the way you can in baseball, where it's just whoever's got the most money, if the owner's willing to spend, just wins. But he's willing to put the necessary funds. He's very like, again, to compare to another LA owner, very much like Stan Kroenke. Stan Kroenke, he's with the Rams, and they moved from St. Louis, and it was really controversial, and you feel for the fans of St. Louis that they got their team stripped from them. But you go to Los Angeles, and then you have this, palace of a stadium, SoFi, in Inglewood, and I will, I'll employ Les Snead and Sean McVay, like outsiders, smart outsiders, to come into my franchise and change things. Make the Rams from a joke of a franchise into, hey, they could win the NFC again this year. Won a Super Bowl within the last half decade. We'll move Jared Goff for Matt Stafford. I feel like you're going to see a very big culture shift. I'm not so sure Rob Pelinka is the general manager of the Lakers 2 years from now. I'm not certain of that. It's not to say the Lakers can't win a championship in the next 2 years. Please, God, don't let that happen. But there's been concerns about Pelinka for a long time. Bad contracts, awful trades in some instances. Okay, again, the Luka trade. Congratulations. Nico Harrison, who I'm not sure how he's still employed by the Dallas Mavericks, calls you and say, hey, do you want one of the 4 best players in basketball? Yeah, what do I have to give up? Hey, Anthony Davis, Max Christie, and a bunch of nothing. Boxed cookies. I don't know. You send me that on the side, too. Like, sure, absolutely, I'll take it. Of course Luka could be a Laker. Of course. His jersey can hang in the rafters for all I care. And so I think you're about to see a big-time culture shift. Like we talk about coaches and the importance of coaches and GMs, of course, the roster. I've always said, man, like it is so hard to get out from bad ownership and be successful. Jeannie Buss is not a bad owner. She just doesn't use necessarily funds to institute better culture with the Lakers or put in the necessary funds to put in a better roster potentially. Certainly before the CBA came in, that just wasn't really a thing the Lakers did. I mean, think about it. They didn't keep their 2020 roster together. They win the title, cruise through the playoffs to get there. I know it was the bubble. I know that year doesn't count because LeBron won a championship, more on LeBron in about 3 to 5 minutes with carving up the context. But gentlemen swept Dame and the Blazers. Gentlemen swept James Harden and Russell Westbrook. Weird fit. So, okay. Gentlemen swept Jokic and Murray in the conference finals and then beat the Jimmy Butler Heat in 6. And then the next year, Bron and AD are back, obviously, but they let Dwight Howard walk and they let Danny Green. I think Danny Green was left from that championship team. All of these guys, these Rondo, all of these integral pieces to this Lakers team, they're like, we're good. We're bringing an old Mark Gasol and trying to make this work. Like, what? So I think, and I hate saying this as a Warriors fan because I did enjoy time when the Buss family owned this thing. And I've certainly enjoyed Rob Pelinka being the general manager of this team. And he still is. So that's my one saving grace. Fingers crossed. I think we're about to see a culture shift. It's not just that they sold the team for $10 billion, which is the biggest sports, the most a guy has ever paid or a group has ever paid for a sports franchise in history. It's not just that they were sold, it's who they were sold to. Mark Walter owns the LA Dodgers. Safe to say they're not afraid to spend money. And I respect that, man. I respect that when owners have, as a Red Sox fan, I can really say this especially. When you have the necessary resources and you use them, the money you spend shows you're just as passionate as the fans of the nosebleeds. That's great. Now, I don't want you to go in the Matt Ishbia route where it's, hey, let's just try something new every year, right? But being smart, employing smart people, that's where Ishbia has gotten wrong, is that they've just gone through coaches and GM. I think the Lakers are about to, they were already in good shape with the Luka trade long-term, of course, but the Lakers just got better as a franchise today. And as a Warriors fan, I don't like it one bit. I see a comment here. Adam is in the comments, and he's touching on something we're going to touch on about 15, 20 minutes. He says the Fever got to let teams know not to F with Caitlin. Well, listen, potentially, and we'll touch on that in 15 to 20 minutes. Very excited to get to that. But when we come back in just 1 minute, carving up the context. I don't think we did a carving up the context last week because it was only 2 shows and whatnot. We're back this week. Our favorite midweek segment on the show. LeBron James on his podcast with Steve Nash talking about ring culture. Get to that in just 1 minute on Carving Up Live. Stay tuned, y'all. We're just getting started. Welcome back to Carving Up Live. Appreciate everybody tuning in as always. So wanted to touch on something that caught my attention the last 48 hours. So LeBron James has a podcast. He has since last year, the Mind the Game podcast, which was with now his current coach, JJ Redick, and now it's Steve Nash. So basically it's LeBron and a former player / coach. Nash used to coach. JJ Redick eventually became a coach. Basically break down the schematics of how teams like to run their offense and just the nuts and bolts that you don't see in other podcasts. I think it's a really great show. There's a reason it's one of the most popular basketball podcasts out there, Apple and Spotify. And so, but they take fan questions at the end, which I think is great. Engage with your audience. And, LeBron was asked, I guess LeBron and Steve Nash were asked about ring culture in the NBA. And LeBron carried the bulk of this answer. Steve Nash chimed in at times, but here's what they had to say. This is from the Mind the Game podcast, LeBron and Steve Nash on ring culture.
I don't know why it's discussed so much in our sport and why it's the A-all, B-all of everything. Like, okay, you weren't a great player if you never won a championship. Yeah. It's like, or if you won one, then you can't be in the same conversation with this person. It's like,
but that's a great point because what you're saying is like, no matter what you have, you need more. No matter what.
Right.
No matter what. They can never end.
Yeah. Right? I don't know, man. It's just like, you sit here and you tell me, Allen Iverson and Charles Barkley and Steve Nash, our wasn't unbelievable. Like, oh, they can't be talked about or discussed with these guys just because this guy won 1 ring or won 2 rings or won, like, it's just weird to me. It's like saying Peyton Manning can't be in the same room with Brady or Mahomes because he only has 1 ring. They don't never discuss that.
So before we get into the argument and what LeBron is saying, as the head coach of the Colorado Buffaloes, primetime Deion Sanders says, "Give me my theme music." All right, Carving Up the Context is back, and on this week's edition of Carving Up the Context, I want to talk about what LeBron said about ring culture. So, first of all, minor error by LeBron. This is a little bitty one. When he said, he was talking about Peyton Manning and Tom Brady and said, that's crazy to say Peyton Manning can't be the same Brady as Tom Brady, or same table as Tom Brady because he only has 1 ring. LeBron, Peyton has 2 rings. I'm going to say that. I'm a Vols fan, I'm a Peyton Manning fan. I'm also a fan of facts. Peyton has 2 rings. I know we forget about that last one because with respect to the great Peyton Manning, who's on my Mount Rushmore of all-time quarterbacks, didn't do much that year or in that playoff run. But the point of all that is, let's get back to the basis of what LeBron's talking about and what I think is being misinterpreted in what he said. Because folks talking about, it's always been about the rings. That's why the fans watch, is to see if their team can win a championship. That's why we watch the finals, for these big storylines. Here's my thing, because what someone would point out, an objective, I know the Jordan propagandist out there would like you not to believe that there are any years out in Jordan's career outside of 1991, 2, 3, 6, 7, 8. But there were other years, by the way, great years for Michael Jordan. Some of his individual seasons were better than some of his championship winning seasons. You can tell the story of Jordan and tell about the losses and the failures. It's what makes the player. There was a time in Michael Jordan's career when he was the best player in basketball. Like, bar none. Like, Magic and Kareem, or Magic, Bird was certainly at the end of his prime. Magic was trending that way. Jordan was better than Magic at that time, late 80s. But he hadn't won anything. And the narrative around Jordan at that time was great stats, team's pretty good in Chicago, but Jordan can't quite reach the top. And so, until he got his titles, it's like, oh, he might be the greatest player ever. Folks, when he retired for the first time, 1993, the Bulls had just completed their first three-peat. Have you guys seen the statue of Michael Jordan outside of the United Center? What does it say? The greatest there ever was, the greatest there ever will be. That was not just the sentiment in Chicago. The majority of the NBA media was like, yeah, that's the greatest player of all time. Agreed, by the way. He did not have half the rings of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Not half. He was still trailing Kareem massively in MVPs at that time. I believe at that point, Michael Jordan had 3 MVPs, which is phenomenal. Kareem had 6. I think prior to Jordan, Kareem was the greatest player of all time. Never surpassed by Magic or Bird or anybody. Russell, Wilt, whoever we throw in. It was Kareem. I've always said, I'm insulted. I feel like I'm the only person in the space that says this. Why is Kareem Abdul-Jabbar never brought up the GOAT discussion? Another story for another day. Half the rings of Kareem. I think half the MVPs. And people are like, yeah, that's the greatest player ever. For the record, agreed. Around 1993, Michael Jordan was the greatest basketball player of all time. So a lot of it's the accomplishments, and a lot of it's like, we're watching him. Like, he doesn't look like everybody else. That's an element. I've used the same argument, for the record, for Patrick Mahomes. I think he's the second. He's got a ways catch Brady, obviously. The Super Bowl loss and the way it happened didn't help. But I think he's second all time. Folks, I said, what about Montana? I said, I get it. The 4 rings, longevity. I get that. I just, and by the way, again, I wasn't around for Montana, and I acknowledge that. But I watched Mahomes. I'm like, no one else looks like this guy. Allen and Lamar and Burrow are awesome. They don't look like this guy on the field. So I get that case. And then when Jordan gets 3 more championships, like, oh, it's universally he's the greatest player ever, which, again, at that time, hey, we're really correct. LeBron James hadn't even come into the picture yet. And regardless who you think is the GOAT in this conversation, the fact can't be denied. Jordan took his lumps for not being a champion. But once he was halfway in ring count in terms of the modern era of superstars, he was half of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in terms of accomplishments. For the record, he met the same number of titles as Kareem, never won as many MVPs, never scored as many points, and was still able to go for good reason. I say all that to say this. I heard Damian Lillard on a podcast, and you could say, oh, Dame doesn't have any rings. Like, okay, I guess that invalidates his opinion on media coverage. I don't know. You do you. But Dame was on, I think this was actually JJ Redick's podcast, the Old Man the 3 podcast, a couple of years ago. And he said, the league is covered differently than when I came in. For the record, Dame came in 2012, not that long ago. That, yes, rings were everything. You got to win championships. If you're on that level, the LeBron level, you got to win championships. That's what the heat Jordan was taking. The heat LeBron was taking. And folks in the media like to assume they have so much power as a collective that they bullied LeBron James out of Cleveland because he couldn't win in Cleveland to go to Miami. That the narrative surrounding LeBron not winning a championship is why he went to the Miami Heat in the first place. And that could not be further from the truth. It is well documented. Jeff Benedict wrote a great book about LeBron. Jeff Benedict's one of the best sports authors out there. His book on the Patriots, which became the documentary for Apple TV Plus. Like, I haven't seen the doc yet. The book, awesome. Not just his book, but in general, it has been documented since LeBron was a teenager. I want to be Michael Jordan. I got Jordan posters in my room. I'm going to wear number 23 because of Michael. I'm going to embrace the Chosen One moniker from Sports Illustrated because I think I can be the greatest thing since Michael Jordan. I can maybe even be better than Jordan. I'm going to do the chalk toss. I'm going to emulate Michael Jordan. I'm chasing MJ for my own, if you want to call it vanity, if you want to call it competitiveness, whatever the case may be. The media did not bully LeBron out of Cleveland. This whole thing, the narratives around LeBron, he caved and was like, I can't win in Cleveland. No, he couldn't. He thought he couldn't win in Cleveland because of the basketball. He was averaging 30 points in these playoff series against Boston and against Orlando. He still can't get past them because they got way better teams than I do. And that was what LeBron was sort of alluding to in that clip is it's a team accomplishment. Now, I think a lot of this changed. So much of it. Heck, even according to Jordan himself, not by his words, but by his actions, the 2016 finals changed everything. Now, I didn't think then, I still don't think now, that at that time, as a guy who thinks LeBron's the GOAT, I did not think LeBron was the GOAT at that time. And that's not just because he crushed my Warriors in a 3-1 comeback. But it was how he did it. He averages a darn near 30-point triple-double, 41 in Game 5, 41 in Game 6, a triple-double in Game 7, including the greatest defensive player in the history of the National Basketball Association, the block on Andre Iguodala. By the way, to bring a championship, not to Miami. It'd been different if it was in Miami. It was to Cleveland. Listen, I'm not big on it. Not big on it. I don't believe in it. The Katie's rings don't count or something. But we know certain rings are a little bit heavier than the others. For the record, MJ's 1998 title, the last one, The Last Dance, the documentary, is one of the greatest titles any individual player has led his team to in the history of the game. It is up there with LeBron in 2016. It is up there with Dirk in 2011. I think Steph in 2022 needs at least some considerations. Not quite that, but the Bulls were falling apart physically, in some cases falling apart psychologically. The Jazz were objectively better than Chicago, top to bottom. Pippen was hurt. Rodman gave you nothing. I'm talking about this Game 6 in particular. Kukoc was the only guy who gave you anything if you're Chicago. And Jordan, on both ends of the floor, that was the greatest game of his career. It just was. It meant more, the significance of it, and he capped it with a layup, a steal, bucket, mic drop, 6 championships. So I say that to say about LeBron's 2016 title. That was the first time folks were like, he may not have as many rings as Michael, just like Michael didn't have as many rings as Kareem, by the way, when he retired the first time. That might be the greatest basketball player ever. That's when the discussion started. And this is according to reports, when that parade was going on in Cleveland, Michael Jordan knew the footage of The Last Dance existed. And he called up the folks at ESPN. Let's greenlight this thing. Let's put this out. Last Dance, here we go. And we saw what we saw. It was a fantastic documentary. 10-part series during COVID. It was great. Jordan's own actions told you. He's gaining on me. Okay, we're back. Again, sorry for the technical difficulties once again. I'm not sure what's going on with the show or whatnot. We will certainly try and get this thing worked out by Friday's show. But back to what I was saying. We'll clip this up so that there's no issues on the YouTube channel. Jordan saw that 2016 comeback, saw the narrative surrounding LeBron and said, I gotta remind people how great I was because this dude's gaining. I feel like ever since that point, those in the media, and we know ring culture in and of itself isn't terrible. But the discussion around LeBron and Michael, it's so tribal, particularly those in the media that got their start in the business by covering Michael Jordan, whether it's in Chicago or nationally. They know Michael. They're close to Michael. They still text with Michael. They will defend him to the death to remain close with Michael Jordan. We remember when Charles Barkley attacked Michael Jordan as an owner. Jordan and Barkley, who were best friends, haven't spoken since. This has been for decades now. This is very well known. It stems from loyalty to MJ. Not loyalty to winning, loyalty to Michael Jordan. That's what comes from the media. And you saw, I hate to have to keep calling out this guy because I do respect him. I swear I do, but he just has some terrible takes sometimes. Stephen A. Smith comes out and says, Giannis, underachieved. Under what? Huh? Champion in 2021, won the first championship in Milwaukee of all cities in a half century. Again, we talk about weighted championships. That's one of them. Did so in the championship closing game in Game 6 by dropping 50 to win the Bucks a title. He's won 2 MVPs. He won a Defensive Player of the Year in the same year that he won one of his MVPs, which only Hakeem Olajuwon has ever done. And he just became the first player in the history of the league. I want to repeat that, the history of the league, to average 30, 11, and 6 on 60% shooting in back-to-back years. Never been done before. For the record, because people talk, oh, what about the playoff success? In this most recent playoff run, in which the Bucks lost the eventual Eastern Conference champion Indiana Pacers, they're a pretty good team. The injuries to Dame and the poorly constructed roster and the bad coach. And Giannis averaged 33, 15, and 6 on 60% shooting. And you want me to blame him for the Bucks' biggest problems? You want me to blame Michael Jordan for the Bulls' shortcomings in the first part of his career? You want me to blame LeBron for losing to the 2015 Warriors? Folks, Andre Iguodala, God bless him. I'm going to get it down. I got his book up here. Andre Iguodala, Sixth Man. Here's a plug for you, Andre. Great book, okay? It's been up here since I've been in the studio. Love Iguodala. Andre Iguodala won a Finals MVP for guarding LeBron James and holding LeBron James, shutting him down to 34, 14, and 9. LeBron lost the Finals in 2017 to what I firmly believe is the greatest team ever constructed, the 2017 Warriors. He averaged a triple-double against the Warriors. The Cavs were the only team that entire postseason that beat the Warriors in the 2017 playoffs. And so I'm supposed to look at his 4-6 record just on its face, no context, and say, what's that worth? So in this week's edition of Carving Out the Context, LeBron is 100% correct. And by the way, the one part I will slightly disagree with LeBron, for the record, is the Peyton Manning thing. Not just the fact he said Peyton has 1 ring when Peyton has 2. But that in the NFL, yes, Peyton Manning does get to sit at the same table as Tom Brady, because frankly, I think they're 2 of the 4 greatest ever. In this order, I got Brady, Mahomes, Manning, Montana. Those are my 4 greatest. My bad. In this order, Brady, Mahomes, Montana, Manning, in that order. But also, like, Aaron Rodgers has a, longer term, obviously, somewhat of a similar resume to Giannis, where it's regular season statistics are off the charts. We're talking about prime Aaron. Multiple MVPs. You did get a Super Bowl, but you would like to see more in the playoffs. For the record, Giannis's playoff resume as of late is significantly better than Aaron's, but whatever. And Aaron is still universally regarded, I guess it's agreeing with LeBron, as one of the 10 greatest quarterbacks in the history of the game. Ring culture matters in the NFL. I think it's especially sort of bled into the Mahomes-Brady thing, because Mahomes is openly pursuing Brady. So the rings, Brady has more rings than any franchise in the history of the league. That's going to be a conversation. But it's done in a much more healthy, like, oh, can he make it? Can he not? Brady's better. No, Mahomes might be more. It's not a, you underachieved. You didn't do enough. You don't have the That has changed in the last decade, folks. It's not like it used to be. Don't let folks gaslight you on, oh, it's always been this way. Ring culture has always existed. It's never been this bad. So the next week's edition of Carving Out the Context, Braun hit the nail on the head. I think there's no question about it. Shifting now, this is an interesting story because, listen, it's funny. I literally talked about her on Monday's show, Caitlin Clark. I said Monday that she is the face. Braun and Steph are just about done. She is about to, in the next year and a half, 2 years, be the face of basketball. Not the WNBA, basketball. She is more marketable than Shea, Jokic, Ant, even Giannis to a degree. Like, she is more popular than those guys with respect to them. It's the game. It's the controversy. It's the story about how the WNBA, listen, I've always watched women's basketball for years. I've covered it even on the show prior to Caitlin Clark, but never to this level because of the gravitas that Caitlin Clark brings to the table. And now we have another Caitlin Clark story. This carries shows like mine during the summer when the NFL's dead and the NBA's offseason is in a sense over. So Caitlin Clark, Indiana Fever are playing in the WNBA Cup. They advanced to the WNBA Cup final. They beat the Connecticut Sun last night. And they win 88-71. And Caitlin was really good in the game. But the story stems in the third quarter, mid-third quarter, and we can show you the footage. We might get copyrighted. That's fine. I want to provide the necessary context. So Caitlin Clark, we got the footage right here, is being guarded right here by some player named JC Sheldon, gets her eye poked, and then here comes another player, bam, knocks Caitlin Clark to the floor. That was Marina Mabrey who knocks her to the floor, and then the ensuing, there's a replay once again, so there's another bump, Caitlin's eye got poked, and then boom, out of nowhere, Marina Mabrey knocks Caitlin Clark to the floor, and it intensified in the fourth quarter. Caitlin hits a kind of a dagger three with under 4 minutes to go. She's talking smack. We know Caitlin likes to talk. More on that. She's talking smack to the Sun bench, and she's like, eat some of that. You like that? And then she's like, I'm going to fire up the home crowd here at Indiana. There's more talking. Eat this. Here we go. Indiana crowd, have some of this. We're advancing to the NBA Cup final. We're a championship contender. Let's go. I'm hyping up the crowd. This is what I do. And then just a replay of her going at the Connecticut Sun bench. She's like, you like this. I'm the best player in the world. Screw all y'all. So I have to admit, initially, my take was going to be a little bit different than it's going to be now until I was provided the necessary context. Initially, I was like, just hit her out of nowhere. Like, what are we doing here? Like, those have said, the league has literally a target, like a bounty on Caitlin Clark. I'm like, this supports that argument until I did a little bit deeper, and this is what's not getting played. Second quarter, Caitlin Clark, and JC Sheldon are getting into it. Here you go. And Caitlin says, some choice words, and there's a shove there. So there you go. I can do that. I can do that if I want to do. And so that you have to imagine blood into the third quarter. I find, folks, the commentary surrounding Caitlin Clark truly insulting to Caitlin Clark. I mean, truly insulting to her. I mean, folks act as if she is this fragile little flower who, almost like a feel-good story, like she overcame unbelievable odds. She'd be like, don't bully her. And listen, I can't speak to Caitlin Clark's personal life. She went through obstacles. Everyone's gone through obstacles to varying degrees to get to where they're at, in terms of success. They don't take into account, whether it's for racial reasons or whatever the case may be, Caitlin Clark's one of the biggest ish talkers in sports. Like, literally. Whether it's in retaliation, as you saw in the fourth quarter, you like that, and she's firing up the crowd, let's go. Or in general, second quarter, this whole thing, by the way, with Sophie Cunningham, who was the Fever's kind of big acquisition from the Phoenix Mercury, they acquire her. She tackles, basically. She's a black belt at age 6, by the way. I would not mess with Sophie Cunningham. She tackles JC Sheldon to the floor late in the fourth quarter to scrum. Cunningham's ejected, all of it. Finally, the Fever have their, you can say Draymond Green, Dennis Rodman, Bill Laimbeer. I've always said this about dynasties. You got to have the enforcer. You got to have somebody step in, and defend the superstar player. And that's what Sophie Cunningham is there for. She's a solid player. A couple of years ago, 2 of the last 3 years, she's averaged double figures. She's fine, but she's an enforcer. That's what her role is for the Indiana Fever. Yet again, black belt at 6. Don't mess with Sophie Cunningham. But one thing I would like to get out of the way, and I hope, if we have any intelligence as a collective society, can we please acknowledge this? Because I know the grifters on the internet would like you to believe otherwise. Can we, if there is, I don't think there is, but let's just say for the sake of argument, that every single altercation, and again, I say this as a Caitlin Clark fan, every single altercation on the floor that Caitlin Clark has ever been involved in, none of them were her fault. It is a league-wide conspiracy. There is a bounty on her. We're going to try and hurt her, all of it. If that is the case, it's not, but let's say it is for the sake of conversation. Can we at least acknowledge that it's not a race thing? That, these black players are jealous because Caitlin, who's white, is getting all of this attention. Guys, that is not the case. The player that poked her in the eye, by the way, after there was a situation in the second quarter between these two, JC Sheldon, white. The one that I thought went over the edge and should have warranted an ejection in my mind, this is where the refs blew it, was Marina Mabrey, who just comes in, blindsides Caitlin, knocks her to the floor. White. So can we, I'm begging you. I know everybody, listen, Angel Reese had a pretty good game the other night, but offensively, she has got to improve her game. I've said that. But what I've also said is the bullying that she has dealt with is uncalled for. I know there's a lot of those out there that would really like, not would like to believe, but would like the masses to believe that it's just, it's reverse racism. It's evidence of that. And Caitlin is just going through unimaginable. No, that is not the case. A lot of this, again, and I say this as a Caitlin Clark fan, and part of this is why I do love Caitlin. She instigates some of this. Some of this is fueled by Caitlin herself. And so, I saw this, again, initially I was like, oh man, like that's uncalled for. You don't just poke her in the eye, knock her to the floor. Like, of course, she was justified in yelling at him and cussing him out in the fourth quarter. This whole thing was started by Caitlin. She cursed out JC Sheldon and then shoved her in the chest. Doesn't necessarily warrant her being poked in the eye, but you open yourself up to that a little bit. If you're gonna dish, you better take it. So listen, shout out to Caitlin Clark, shout out to the WNBA. Like this is what we want to see. We want to see bad blood. For the record, isn't that kind of the knock on the NBA Finals this year? People say, "Oh, small market." Folks, we've had high-rated finals with small markets before. That's not the issue. The issue is not only do the Pacers and Thunder not like each other, not only do the Pacers and Thunder, they don't love each other. They're trying to win a championship from the other team, but there's no rivalry there. But also, no one hates OKC. No one hates Indiana. No, there's not a David Goliath feel to it. There's not the juice that we see in previous finals. There's no rivalry there. We may have a rivalry. If memory serves me correct, Connecticut knocked Indiana out in the playoffs last year. Now, there's a lot of new pieces there. It's not the same Connecticut team we saw a year ago. They've had a rough start to the season. Indiana, by the way, according to FanDuel, number 3, third best odds to win the championship. And as I said last night in the 8 o'clock spot, the WNBA Finals happens every October. October, we know, is just, it's heaven as a sports fan because every major sport is going. NFL is the king of television. College football is in second. NBA season starts around that time. NHL season starts around that time. And oh, by the way, Major League Baseball's in their postseason. I would not mind to see how a Caitlin Clark Finals rates against the NLDS or NLCS, however, whenever at the point of October it is. Is it off the table that the WNBA Finals would get higher ratings than baseball? That's what Caitlin Clark, she has brought that conversation to the table. Because of her gravitas, because of her star power, because of her Steph Curry-like game. She's like Steph Curry and Steve Nash rolled into one. So, but I think if the sport is going to grow and evolve into the national conversation, which it already is in that, we've got to stop patronizing Caitlin and the other players. Oh, she's a little flower. Oh, no contact. Oh, how dare you go after her? She kind of incited it. And by the way, she's so great of a player. You know what? It's on the board. You know those stories that's been told? Quick story here on the show. Quick little story. I didn't know we were going here. But this is where some of these topics can go sometimes. I won't reveal this person's name. I had a coach. My athletic career was brief. I wasn't very good. Listen, I'll play pickup basketball. Anybody, I can shoot the piss out of the ball. I can't do anything else. I'm a bad defender, can't rebound, can't pass, dribble, and any of that. But in my brief athletic career, I played basketball in high school, freshman year. And I had a coach who played pro ball overseas. Not going to reveal the person's name, played pro ball overseas. He had, and he didn't mention this person's name, he had a teammate on one of his international squads that was with the Bulls and Michael Jordan. And he said that Michael Jordan, and it's been reported, this is not like new, but that Michael Jordan would go to the bars in a city, New York, even Chicago, like, his home city, talk wild smack about the other team's best player. Ewing, Barkley, anybody. Think of the superstars of that era. Malone, Stockton. And say untrue things about them just to fire up the competitive juices so that he gets the best version in the next game. That's been widely reported, but I can say as somebody who played for a guy who played with a guy who played with Michael Jordan, that is 100% true. I say that to say maybe it was a heat of the moment thing. And this makes it, see, folks like Caitlin Clark for different reasons than I like Caitlin Clark. I'm such a fan of her game and her approach. What if she incited J.C. Sheldon in that second quarter? She's a smart player, Caitlin. Is she knows that there, maybe not she's gonna be poked in the eye, but there's gonna be retaliation at some point in the game if this happens in the second quarter. That happens, and it just gets her competitive juices rolling. Then she hits that dagger 3 in the fourth quarter and just saying God knows what to the Suns bench, and it's firing up the crowd. Like, that gets the greats going. Cover Caitlin for what she is and the additional things that make her great other than her unbelievable game, which, for the record, she's second in both points and assists in her second year in the league, which is unbelievable. Cover Caitlin for what she is, not for this like sympathy figure you're weirdly trying to make, whether it's for racial reasons, whether it's for political reasons, whatever the case may be, whether it's just for sports narratives or sexist reasons. Who knows? She's a dog. She goes after the Connecticut Sun like the great competitors in sports have gone at other players, at other competitors. So I love it. I think anyone freaking out over this or acting like, oh my God, Caitlin cussed her out and pushed her in the chest. Like that it started with that. Now, again, for the record, I personally think Mabry should have been ejected. The poke in the eye thing, like, that's certainly a flagrant. I think it might have actually gotten upgraded to the flagrant 2, or I think it was Mabry. This happened like just a few hours ago, but one of them, or maybe both of them, had their flagrants upgraded to a flagrant 2. Mabry certainly was. She was not ejected after the blindside shove. Any blindside shove, like this happened with Patrick Beverley and Chris Paul in the conference finals 4 years ago. Like that to me is chicken, you know what? Like if you're gonna go at me, go at me to my face. But I love this. To me, if there's anyone that botched the situation last night, it was the officials for not getting it under control sooner and allowing this to happen. And Caitlin got a technical for like what? That was come on, man. The officials need to do their job as well. And I'm literally, or usually not necessarily pro ref, but not the games were rigged. No, no, you just lost. So there's that. All right, be back after the break, but when we come back, Game 6 of the NBA Finals. Championship could be won tomorrow night, folks. Get my predictions for that in just 1 minute. Hopefully there's no technical difficulties moving forward. We'll be back in 1 minute on Carving It Up Live. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Carving It Up Live. So, Game 6 of the NBA Finals is tomorrow night. And before we get into my prediction for Game 6, would like to advertise NBA Finals Game 6 post-game reaction show. We've been doing these throughout this series on the Grid Network. That will be live tomorrow night at 11 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Pacific time. Again, live on the Grid Network's YouTube channel and on Twitter. I'll try and go live on either the Grid's IG or my personal IG. We'll see what happens. But Arthur Hirsch is going to be joining us. He's been with me throughout the finals. And Paris Brown. I almost feel bad bringing Paris to the show because there is the risk that Indiana could go down tomorrow night and the season is over. And like Paris is a chill dude. Like Paris isn't going to like crash out live on air or something like that, because the reality is we'll probably be live at 11 Eastern exactly while the game is still going on. And so, we'll try and get our like TV synced up. I did that with Paris before Game 5 on Monday night before our show. So again, like how I'll react in time, and I'll probably make for some great social media clips. But Paris Brown, Grid Network contributor, big Pacers fan, he'll be with us tomorrow night, 11 Eastern, 8 Pacific time. Arthur Hurst will be joining us most likely after the game. He's kind of been like the post-game guru and expert. So definitely stay tuned once again tomorrow night. Game 6 post-game reaction show on the Grid Network. All right, let's talk about Game 6. Let's go and get the background music going. Here we go. Game 6, the finals. OKC can win it all, ladies and gentlemen. Or the Indiana Pacers can get this back to a decisive win or go home. Championship on the line. Game 7 back in OKC, which would be this Sunday. Again, if you're an impartial observer or you just bet the Thunder's win in however many games, you're almost pulling for Indiana so that we get the decisive Game 7, and we haven't had one of those since 2016. And as a Warriors fan, I'd like to get that not off the books, because you can't do that, but out of recent memory as the most recent finals Game 7. Nonetheless, OKC on the road is a 6.5-point favorite. Every bit of my analysis is coming under the assumption, as I said earlier in the show, that Tyrese Haliburton is going to play Game 6. Where Carlisle has said that they're preparing as if he's not going to play, Haliburton has said, I'm going to go out of my way to try and play this basketball game. From the outside looking in, my mindset is, okay, the injury happened in the first quarter, the re-aggravation, whatever, and he played the rest of the game. Despite the Pacers knowing we are going to win, if we lose by 1,000 points, we still got Game 6 back at home. And he could be healthier if he doesn't play the rest of this game. And so all that in mind, I think Haliburton's going to play. I think Haliburton's going to play pretty well in this game. I could see, again, there's hampered, there's the injury situation. I could see like a typical Haliburton, like 17, 18 points, but a good chunk of assists, 8 or 9. The average 9 in the regular season. I think this is an opportunity for the Pacers to show off their bench, and I think they're going to. I think this is going to be backs against the wall. This is going to be Aaron Nesmith. This is going to be Obi Toppin. It's going to be Benedict Mathurin. Miles Turner has not had a good offensive series in this finals. He's going to have to. I think Miles Turner, I think this is a situation where you have like 7 guys in double figures for the Pacers. You could have Siakam go for 25, 26. A number of Pacers like Nesmith give you 12. Obi Toppin give you 15. That type of situation. Haliburton with 17. With that being said, if we know one thing about either great player, all-time greats, or players that are aspiring to be all-time greats, with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's on the path to becoming just that. He's MVP, finished top 5 MVP last year, as a chance to win this championship, and the first in the history of the Oklahoma City Thunder. I think this is an opportunity where he meets them. We've seen plenty of NBA finals where you got a chance to close them out. Like Jordan, I think it was 45 in Game 6 in 1998. That's maybe the most iconic. But LeBron with the triple-double in Game 7 against my Warriors, will remind me. Steph dropped, I think it was 34, 35, if I remember correctly, against the Celtics in 2022. Giannis dropped 50, iconic 50 against the Phoenix Suns. Like when you've got a championship in your grasp, home, away, it doesn't matter. You freaking take it. And SJ's got that killer instinct. We saw it in Game 4. We saw him get that quick 7-0 run. The free throws, the 3, the mid-range. And based on what Jalen Williams has done the last couple of games, and really has gotten better every single game in the finals, scoring-wise, and the efficiency, like it's ebbed and flowed, but it started at 31%, and then the other night, it's 56% shooting. I think this is a situation. Shai's going to go for 40 points. And Jalen Williams is going to go for 30 plus. And then the rest of the Oklahoma City guys will follow. The Carusos will give you 10-ish. Chet Holmgren's going to have to be big in this game. Since Daniel's gone back to the double big lineup, I feel like the series has kind of shifted. I think the Oklahoma City Thunder, by night's end, by, say, 11:10 Eastern Standard Time, will be the 2025 NBA champions. They are going to win this game 119-115. Again, the group effort, the team effort for the Pacers. They'll showcase their depth and make this thing a great finish. But Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, who I have warmed up to as of late, the flopping and whatnot has hopefully for the long term, particularly in the playoffs, subsided. And he has been nothing short of clutch in this series, particularly in that Game 4. I think the Thunder win tomorrow night. Place Pacers plus 6.5. I think the bench player is going to show up. Carlisle will, do whatever he's got to do. But the Oklahoma City Thunder, by night's end, will be the 2025 NBA champions, and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, obviously, will be your finals MVP. Jalen Williams has been great in this series, but SGA will, without question, be your finals MVP. I'm conflicted because I'm rooting for my pick. Not just in Oklahoma City winning, but OKC in 6. That was my pick coming in. I said, folks, the series is going to go longer than you think because the Pacers style play will give OKC problems. But outside of that, OKC was the better team. I've said this. I've picked every NBA Finals since 2015. I have never gotten an NBA Finals correct that did not involve the Golden State Warriors. All the finals the Warriors lost. Obviously, I was wrong because I picked my Warriors. And then every series outside of that, I've been wrong on. So I'm not very good at picking finals. If OKC can come through for me here in 6, a little bit of a redemptive story there for me personally. And then as an NBA fan, I'm like, who doesn't want to see Game 7 of the NBA Finals? Like, that's fun. I have a sneaky suspicion Oklahoma City wins kind of comfortably, similar to how they did in Game 5 in a Game 7, but anything can happen in a Game 7. Crazy stuff happens in those situations. So I'm picking OKC, so I'm rooting for my pick for this game. I'm rooting for my pick in the finals to do it in as many games as I thought they would. That's where I'm at. All right, that is all the time we have for today's show. Appreciate everybody stopping by. As always, be sure to catch Carving Up Live on Friday at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time, right here on YouTube, as well as on Instagram and on Twitter. Be sure to obviously catch, when we'll put this up again, the NBA Finals Game 6 post-game reaction show live on the Grid Network's YouTube channel, Twitter account, and then we'll see if we get the Gridders IG or my personal IG. We'll see how that works. But yeah, 11 Eastern, 8 Pacific time. That's going to be tomorrow night, likely in the final minutes of Game 6, if not after the game is over, and it's a trophy ceremony, all of it. Arthur Hurst will be joining me. Paris Brown will be joining me. 2 big Grid Network contributors. Arthur's been with us the entire series. Paris is a big Pacers fan. Cannot wait. Stay tuned for that. And we'll see you guys on Carving It Up Live, this show on Friday, 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific time. Have a great rest of your week, everybody. See y'all on Friday. Stay safe out there. God bless y'all. Peace out. I love Caitlin's trash talk, baby. Keep it going. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube, and be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live, as well as our other incredible content creators here on the Grid Network.